All right, hello everyone. Thank you for coming to this panel, which we've titled Mischievous Fun, Designing Toontown. We're here to talk to you about some of the philosophies that Ash and I and the rest of our game design department use when we're creating new content for the game, and sort of how we reflect on the design principles of Toontown Online while integrating some of our own new design principles with Toontown Rewritten to create ultimately what you'll see towards the end, some of the principles we have developed for Clear Coasts. And so without any further ado, I'll let Ash introduce herself.
All right. Oh,
go ahead.
Okay. My name is Ashley, or Ash, either one. My Toon's name is also Ashley. I'm a game design coordinator for Toontown Rewritten. I've mainly been working on Clear Coast. I've been a team member since 2022, so it's been about 1 year now. Member of the community since 2012, and a fun fact is that it took me 10 years to max fishing due to chronic impatience. So.
And I am Joey Zolkowski. I'm the game design lead of Toontown Rewritten and the project director for Clear Coasts. I have been a member of the Toontown community since 2003 and part of Toontown Rewritten since 2013. I have not maxed fishing nor even maxed a toon because I'm often so busy working on the game. But one of these days, I'll get close. But let's go ahead and start with our first section.
All right, so our first section is titled Designing Toontown Online. So we're going to be diving into some of the original design documents from Toontown Online. All right, so right here we have a screenshot from an original Toontown Online document that was made in the year 2000, and it outlines some design principles desired by the team at Disney. So, as you can see, all of these aspects are actually still present within Toontown Rewritten today, especially the game balance between activities, exploration, conflict, and interaction, as well as the work versus play dynamic. You can actually find this in the Toontown Preservation Project if you look hard enough. But yeah, all of these are still present, and we try to stick to them when designing new content for Toontown Rewritten. All right, so this image right here displays the official gameplay loop that was crafted for Toontown Online. If you're unfamiliar with what a gameplay loop is, a lot of early design processes for all forms of games, including board games, apps, PlayStation, most games revolve around having a very distinguishable gameplay loop, which is the cycle of actions that occurs throughout the course of the gameplay. So, as an entirety, Toontown's loop is very complex. As you can see, it's described as a double loop. It's very complex because there's a diverse variety of activities that players can participate in Toontown rather than one simple, direct gameplay loop that continues over and over again. There are a lot of different options. So you can see here that the loop is honestly still prominent within today's version of Toontown as well. Aside from the content we've added, this doesn't talk about the Cellbot Task Force gameplay loop, but we will be talking about that as well here. But you can see you're in the middle, that's you. You have plenty of choices to make. You can go out onto the street and fight Cogs, which leads to leveling up, becoming better at using gags. But then you run out of gags, you have to ride the trolley, get jelly beans to buy more gags, and then the cycle continues. So that's the main gameplay loop that makes up Toontown Online and Toontown Rewritten, and this was actually created by a developer of Toontown Online. Where exactly did he get that from? You found it.
Yeah, this is actually a presentation that Felipe Lara made, who was at one point Toontown's art director and then later became the creative director of Toontown Online. And I believe this is still available on his website. He has a big presentation, not just about Toontown, but about all sorts of games he's worked on. And it's a great game design resource if that's something that you're interested in looking more into.
All right, so this is just a little more information about the overall success of Toontown's gameplay loop. This graphic was crafted by the same member of the original team that Joey just mentioned, and it details the impact of the loop on the players. So it says here, the ideal loop pushes you to experience all the elements in the game. As you explore more parts of the world, make friends and form community, get to know more characters and their stories, and master the game mechanics, you become more engaged and invested in the whole experience. The result, players continued engaged in the game for years, and we know that's still happening today. So yeah, then this was made a long time ago, so it's true.
So next we're going to take a look at how we've taken these pillars of Toontown Online and crafted them into the design for Toontown Rewritten. And so we've kind of taken the resources that Ash just talked about, but also all sorts of design documentation that we've researched over the years, as well as our own experience playing Toontown, and tried to distill them into what we call our design pillars. And so these are 3 things that we look at as lenses when we're designing content for Toontown Rewritten to make sure that help us make decisions about whether this is going to measure up to our standards for quality, fun, and just social interaction for the game. So our first pillar we call enticing teamwork. And this is not just meaning that teamwork is in the game, but we want it to feel naturally alluring. We want it to be not just a way to play the game, but the ideal way to play the game. Because ultimately, Toontown is just more fun with other players. So we wanted to craft moments where between the excitement where friendships can grow. You know, that's like when you're waiting in the elevator to get to the next floor of the Cog building. Like, every time I'm in one of those elevators, it feels like I just have such joyful conversations with people, chatting about our day, and that's like where friendships are made. And if it was just Cog battle after Cog battle after Cog battle without those moments of stillness in between, then the social interaction might not be nearly as alluring and incredible as it is in Toontown. So it's something that we keep in mind with this pillar. We also have our living zany Tuniverse. And this is really just trying to emphasize that Toontown is a wacky place. We want to make sure that we aren't unintentionally or designing like a regular office building. We want it to be a cartoon office building.
That's what buildings are for, right?
Right. And you see that in, say, like the design of the character design even of the Boiler, who that was a boss that we decided, we could make him just like a normal cog, or, we're in Toontown, like a person doesn't have to be, a standard life form with limbs. Like, we could turn an entire room into an enemy. And that's one of those things that like you could really only do in a place like Toontown. So we want to create a world that changes even when players are offline as well. We really think of Toontown as not just like lines of code running on a server, but we think of it as a real world, like a Tuniverse that really exists and that never sleeps, and something that changes even when you're not there. That's led to content like our Silly Meter update, where even when you're offline, the Silly Meter is rising and changing based on player actions and has a permanent effect on the world, even when you're not there to see it. Same thing with like the gardening that Toontown Online did. That's something that happens even while you're not there. And we really like thinking about it as this real place. And then finally, the sort of namesake of this panel is our final pillar, mischievous fun for all. And this is really emphasizing that, like, even just as we can see in the diversity of this room, Toontown is a place for anyone. It's somewhere that allows us to kind of unleash our inner mischief, and we want to design content that allows you to kind of feel like you're breaking the rules. That's the great part of being a Toon, is you're kind of sticking it to the man and, breaking these standards of corporate workplaces that many of us as adults have now dealt with in real life. And we want it to kind of, again, just feel like you're breaking the rules and experiencing a bit of mischievous fun. And so we not only have our kind of high-level pillars for the entire game, but we also create design pillars for each major piece of content that we develop. So these were our pillars for the Cellbot Task Force update. These actually came before it was the Cellbot Task Force, when it was more of just field offices. And so the first one is Endgame Challenge. It's an obvious one, but we knew that at the point that Cellbot Task Force came out, that players were craving more to do in Toontown. They wanted a real challenge because Toons had sort of exponentially gotten more powerful than our level 12 cogs. And so that was a big focus of that update. And then we wanted new battle strategies. Again, we had seen that like there was sort of an established meta in Toontown, and it's never super fun when like you're in a building or a boss battle with someone and someone's just telling you exactly what to do. There's no creativity in it. And we were like, well, what if we designed a battle that changes every time you play it, and you never quite know what to expect or how you're going to have to change your combinations of gags. And that's what directly led to the mechanic inside of field offices, where you have gag tracks that are taken away at the beginning of it, and you don't know exactly which ones they're going to be, and then you'll unlock more over time based on how well you do. So we tried that, as well as the other mechanics of the boiler boss battle, like status effects and all the different phases of the boiler, to keep everyone on their toes and try and encourage new creative ways to use Toontown's battle system. And then finally, we want this to be a revamped but not remade update. And we wanted to preserve the parts of the original field offices that players enjoyed, like the maze game, while keeping it updated for Toontown Rewritten. And then I think for the sake of time, we might skip over this next one, because this is the stuff that you all know as the mega fans. But we will just take a look at the sort of core loop of field offices. So Ash described earlier the loop that exists for Toontown Online as a whole. And this is our loop for field offices. It's a pretty simple one. You're defeating annexes, you're collecting remote controls as rewards, you increase your resistance rank, and then you go back and defeat more annexes. Now, the resistance rank was a missing piece for this for a long time. When we first started working on this update, it was only field offices, right? And we knew we were going to do some toon tasks, but like we hadn't quite ironed out exactly what progression would look like. And as we were playing field offices, we actually got pretty far into development and kind of realized that like we were going to have to do something more to make sure that it felt like you were advancing, like you weren't just playing the building as like a mini game, but it was something that would give your toon real rewards. And so we talked about what are people's favorite rewards in Toontown. There's of course laugh points, there is clothing items, and we really leaned on those for this all about task force. And this was a brand new thing. Oh, and then the other one was secret areas. It's fun when you unlock your cog suit and you get access to a brand new part of the game that you haven't seen before. And that's what led to the hideout. So, it's just something that I think demonstrates the importance of core loops. Even if you feel like you're designing a game and you feel like you know what your loop is, writing it out can be a helpful exercise, because you might find out that you have a missing piece of it that you end up needing to fill in later.
All right, for this next section, we're going to be talking about designing the future of the Tuniverse, specifically Clear Coast. So we're going to talk about the design process and pillars for Clear Coast. All right, so before we went into designing the specifics of Clear Coast, we actually narrowed down our playground concepts to 4 different ideas that were pitched by the Toontown team. We created design documents to flesh out multiple elements of the playground, including layout, interactive activities, street layouts, cog facilities, storyline, and the overall risks and benefits of the different types of playgrounds. Conceptual art, music, and design docs were also created by members of the team to make sure that each playground was explored equally. So we really got a close look into what each of these 4 playgrounds would look like if we were to implement them, and it came down to balancing, what can we realistically see being in the Toontown universe? Sure, some of these ideas are super exciting, super ambitious, but what feels like Toontown? What feels like Toontown Online? What feels like Toontown Rewritten? What feels like something people would really enjoy? And yeah, we spent a lot of time, not only as designers, but as an entire team, kind of weighing the different balances of, what people will like, what people will enjoy. That was the most important part of that process.
Yeah, and I really do just want to emphasize like how long and hard we thought about like what is this playground going to be, because we knew it was something that was going to take a long time to develop, and we knew it was something that people have been waiting for a long, long time. We also kind of knew that like no matter what we chose, not everyone would be happy, because we all have these different ideas of what really was under that cloud. So we wanted to explore every possible option we could think of. We looked at community threads on things like MMO Central forums and Reddit to see like playground ideas that had been pitched in the past. We had a bunch of pitches from our own team, and then, like Ash said, we really did go and fully put together a design document and create concept art for 4 different themes. Clear Coast was just one of those. We aren't showing what those other themes were today, but rest assured, you guys are going to see them in the future. We're going to unveil those design documents maybe at the next ToonFest. It's a little early to do it right now while we're still in development on Clear Coasts, but those are things that we have in store for you in the future. But after we had those detailed design documents, we were exploring things like, what is the main mechanic in the playground? Like, what is the look and feel of how you're going to walk around this playground? What is the look and feel of the streets? What are some potential storylines we could do in this neighborhood? What would the Cogs be doing in this neighborhood? How would they interact with the story? And then what were the different interactive activities? Because no matter what theme we chose, we knew that interactivity was going to be a big part of this.
Yeah, I gotta say, this wasn't one of the ones we explored, but the funniest idea that was thrown around was a cloud-based playground. That would have been hilarious. But no, we didn't explore that one. It was just thrown out. I felt like I had to tell you guys. It was funny.
That's true. And so on the next slide here, this was an early concept art for Clear Coast. You can see we haven't quite cleared all the clouds from this one, but this was
a little stormy. Yeah, that's all.
Still a little stormy here. But this was made by our concept artist, Hannah, as just an early exploration of what Clear Coast might look like. And it actually ended up not quite being exactly this. Like what you're seeing on screen here was more of I almost want to say like stereotypical like island where maybe it was a little more themed to something like Hawaii or the Bahamas. And we wanted to take it in a different direction. We felt like there was something really special about, like we've talked about, like the coastal cities of Italy and games like Super Mario Sunshine and movies like Luca that just have such a strong color palette, something that really felt like it was kind of naturally toony. And then we discovered, as you all saw in the sketch to screen panel this morning, the idea of beach toys and using that as kind of a playful element to bring in. So this is just an example of, comparing this to some of the concept art you've already seen, how far the idea of Clear Coast changed even from its early stages.
Yeah, keep in mind, this is all very early concept art. None of this can be guaranteed in Clear Coast.
The playground really looks nothing like this anymore from our current white boxes.
Yeah, just thought it'd be cool to share. But yeah, Clear Coast also has design pillars, just like field offices, just like Toontown as a whole. But yeah, some of the design pillars we've been focusing on, number one is intriguing interactivity. We really want to reinvent the classic structure of streets and playgrounds to give players something different that doesn't just feel like a reskin of another street or another location. And we wanted to incorporate interactive activities for players to socialize and experiment within the playground, so that playgrounds aren't just a place to stop in, get your gags, get laugh, and run out. We want to encourage players to stay a while and enjoy the environment around them. We also want to focus on meaningful storytelling and tell a story that enhances the environment of the playground. So our goal with this playground is to weave in a strong theme in a natural yet meaningful way, focusing mainly on environmentalism and tell a story that stands out from the other playgrounds. Lastly, accessibility for all is a really important part of Clear Coast. We want to create a new area that players of all experience levels can enjoy. We don't just want to block this off from new players because it's the newest location. Cellbot Task Force is amazing, but it's a little hard to get into if you haven't reached a certain point in the game. Clear Coast is going to stand out in that way. We're going to allow for some connectivity between other playgrounds and Clear Coast, so it's not just tucked away in Donald Streamland. We're going to make sure that people in not all playgrounds, but more than one playground can access the new playground.
Yeah, and I do also just want to call out the differences in these pillars compared to the ones you saw earlier for the Cellbot Task Force. The Cellbot Task Force was a much more end game challenge targeted type of content. And this one, while it is still for end game players, like it is going to be one of the later playgrounds in the game, we also wanted the main area of the neighborhood itself to be accessible and interactive and have all sorts of different fun activities that anyone of all experience levels can do, because we feel like we could use some more high level and low level Toon interaction in Toontown.
Definitely. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the street designing process. So creating the new street actually involved a lot of brainstorming for a variation of what it could look like. The first idea for different elevation levels emerged with the concept art you can see on the top left. This was actually for a clear coast street. We discovered, we can experiment with the existing formula we have for streets, create more interesting dynamics and environments for players to walk through that's not just that same street with the sidewalks. And then we actually sketched out, what the overhead layout of Snooze Square could look like, marked off where the elevation would be, the buildings, and finally brought it to life. However, we did choose to start with creating Snooze Square over the other streets just to see how well these changes could be implemented into an existing playground before we move on to something entirely new. So, yeah, and then we have a video right here in case you haven't, I'm not sure how to, yeah, you can kind of see we have some different elevation levels, which is unlike what we've done before. And we've actually got those elevation levels to simulate going down into sea level because you're going to the beach. But yeah, there are some rapid twists and turns, so it doesn't feel too unlike Donald's Dreamland. I know some of those turns can be frustrating. But yeah, we also have some shortcuts. If you guys are playtesting, make sure to look out for those.
Yeah, and this is available again for playtesting at the Toontown Rewritten booth. We really would encourage you to check it out and let us know what you think, because we're still in the early stages of putting this street together, and we think it's pretty fun, but we want to know what you all think so that we can continue to make changes and adapt, especially before we start moving into the design of the Clear Coast streets. And then I think the last thing that we have to show here is I did just want to shout out our technical team to put together this street. We ended up creating our own level editor for Toontown Rewritten that's custom for us. And this was put together in large part by John A., who's actually here at ToonFest. He's one of the folks that's been running the game stations. But yeah, could we just give a round of applause to the tech team? I really have to tell you, one of the craziest facts as a designer about Toontown Rewritten is that we went 10 years without any sort of level editor. It was a really tedious process to place things in the game before, and this is revolutionary. It's something that will really speed up our design process going forward.
Yeah, no, I have no idea. I wasn't here before they had this. I don't know how that worked. But yeah, no, me, John, and Joey spent many hours rearranging the various street tiles, rotating them, cleaning up the edges to really make sure that you guys could have a good experience playtesting this here. So all of your feedback is much appreciated on the playtest because, again, this is a very rough work in progress, and we want it to feel as fun as possible. So please let us know there.
Yeah, and so I do also want to shout out Something Random and Hawkheart, two of our other team members who really helped out a lot with this. And that really brings us to the end of what we had to talk about. We have to vacate here in just a second, but we have time for maybe 2 questions if you just want to raise your hand. Yes, I saw a hand over here first.
What was the reason behind creating a new level editor? Because Disney's is already public.
That is a good question. So the question was, what was the reason behind creating a new one? Because Disney's is already public. Part of it is Toontown Rewritten does have some of its own custom formats. We use XML files rather than DNA files like Disney did. But the other part of it was we wanted to be able to create new features specific to the kind of content that we wanted to create without having to deal with the tech debt of something that had already existed for Toontown Online. And then there was a hand over here.
So this is somewhat related to the level editor. What was the reason behind switching from DNA to XML?
Oh, that's a question that dates back all the way, I think, to 2013 when we did that. And personally, I might have known the answer at one point and I've forgotten it. But Sam Edwards, our tech ops lead, would be a good person to ask about that if you find him. And then I see one more hand over here. I think this will be our last question for now.
I would just assume the reason for switching was probably because DNA is a proprietary format.
Oh, yeah. I think that might be true.
Instead of developing tools where it just switch over to something you already know about.
And real quick, holy mackerel question.
My question is regarding the task, like the rewards, the task rewards that you can get from your posts. Has anything ever been brought up where people bring back, like just doing tasks for merits as opposed to just doing facilities? Because if it's supposed to be a vacation, like on you can get paid time off.
Oh, yeah. So the question was, okay, would we ever bring back tasks for doing merits because you could get paid time off? We've definitely thought about different rewards. I don't know, is there anything, Ash, that you want to say about that idea or others that we've had?
That's an amazing idea. Super creative. But no, I have not thought of that. But now I am thinking of it. So thank you. But no, our rewards, we're trying to bring some new rewards to the table that will, I don't know how to say this subtly, but there will be new rewards.
Yes, there will be some new rewards, and stay tuned to find out what they are.
Yes, stay tuned. Much desired new rewards.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. This has been great.
Thank you.
If you have any other questions, Ash and I will be back at the booth. We'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, guys. We timed that. Like, wow. I'm like